After Somalia lost the Ogaden War in March 1978, the president's popularity with Somalis plummeted and widespread discontent among his generals led to an attempted coup d'etat on the 10th of April 1978. Most of the coup's ringleaders were rounded up and executed, but some escaped and formed the Somali Salvation Democratic Front, starting the rebellion that eventually toppled Siad Barre from power 13 years later. In May 1986, Mohammed Siad Barre suffered serious injuries in a car crash near Mogadishu, when the car transporting him smashed into the back of a bus during a heavy rainstorm. He was treated in a hospital in Saudi Arabia for head injuries, broken ribs and shock for a month. Lieutenant General Mohammed Ali Samatar, then vice president, served as de facto head of state for the next several months. Although Barre managed to recover enough to present himself for re-election to a 7-year term on December 23, 1986, his poor health and advanced age led to speculation about who would succeed him. Possible contenders included his son-in-law General Ahmed Suleiman Abdul, then the Minister of the Interior, in addition to Samatar. In an effort to hold on to power, Barre's ruling Supreme Revolutionary Council, SRC, became increasingly totalitarian and arbitrary. This caused opposition to his government to grow. Barre tried to quell the unrest by abandoning appeals to nationalism, relying more and more on his own inner circle, and exploiting historical clan animosities. By the mid-1980s, more resistance movements supported by Ethiopia's communist Derg administration had sprung up across the country. Barre responded by ordering punitive measures against those he perceived as supporting the guerrillas, especially in the north. The clampdown included the bombing of cities, with the northwestern administrative center of Hargeisa, a Somali national movement, SNM, stronghold, among the targeted areas in 1988. In December 1981, unrest was triggered in northern Somalia by the arrest of 30 ISOC professionals in Hargeisa who created a self-help group to improve local facilities. 44. This was followed by the systematic efforts to remove all ISOCs from positions of power, including the military, judiciary and security services, as well as harsh policies enacted against the ISOC, including a declaration of economic warfare on the ISOC. 45. The transfer of power to non-ISOC pro-government individuals further pushed ISOC communities to rebel against Barre's regime and was one of the main causes of the breakout of the Somaliland War of Independence. 44. 46. A destroyed M47 Patton in Somaliland, left behind wrecked from the Somaliland War of Independence. In 1988, Siad Barre and Ethiopian dictator Mengistu Haile Mariam agreed to a secret deal whereby each would cease hosting insurgencies of one another. 47. As a result, prompting the Somali National Movement, SNM, to launch an offensive on northern Somalia from its bases on the Ethiopian border. 48. Barre's regime responded with systematic human rights abuses and the genocide of thousands of ISOC tribesmen, resulting in up to 200,000 civilians slaughtered and 500,000 more people seeking refuge in neighboring Ethiopia. 48. In response to these humanitarian abuses, Western aid donors cut funding to the Somali regime, which, at the time, was heavily reliant on foreign aid. 48. This resulted in a rapid retreat of the state, accompanied by a severe drop in value for the Somali shilling and mass military desertion by Somali army units. 48. In 1990, as fighting intensified, Somalia's first president, Aden Abdullah Osman Dar, and about 100 other Somali politicians signed a manifesto advocating reconciliation. 49. A number of the signatories were subsequently arrested. 50. Barre's heavy-handed tactics further strengthened the appeal of the various rebel movements, although these groups' only common goal was the overthrow of government. Also played a major role in developing piracy in Somalia. In the north, fighting continued between SNM rebels and heavily armed pro-government militia in places like Odal. In January 1991, in one of the final episodes of the civil war in the north, SNM militia gave chase to retreating government forces 26th Division to the town of Dila, where a battle took place and the town was destroyed. SNM militia then continued into Borama, the capital and largest town of Adal. But the SNM leadership withdrew units within 24 hours to allow discussions to take place without the threat of occupation. By February 4, SM's control extended to the entire north of Somalia, and all prisoners and pro-government ex-soldiers were released and ordered to return to their regions of origin, mainly Ethiopia, except for Haii ex-soldiers and ex-civil servants, who were permitted to remain in Burko since their lives would have been at risk if they had traveled through hostile pro-Bari country on their return to Mogadishu. Various armed factions began competing for influence in the power vacuum and turmoil that followed, particularly in the south. In 1990-92, customary law temporarily collapsed due to the fighting. This precipitated the arrival of Anosamian military observers in July 1992, followed by larger peacekeeping forces. Factional fighting continued in the south. In the absence of a central government, Somalia became a failed state. The UN withdrew in 1995, having incurred large casualties, and the uncreated police force collapsed. After the central government's collapse, there was some return to customary and religious law in most regions. In 1991 and 1998, two autonomous regional governments were also established in the northern part of the country. This led to a relative decrease in the intensity of the fighting, with the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute removing Somalia from its list of major armed conflicts for 1997 and 1998. In 2000, the Transitional National Government was established, followed by the Transitional Federal Government, TFG, in 2004. The trend toward reduced conflict halted in 2005, and sustained and destructive conflict took place in the south in 2005-7. But the battle was of a much lower scale and intensity than in the early 1990s. In 2006, Ethiopian troops seized most of the south from the newly formed Islamic Courts Union, ICU. The ICU then splintered into more radical groups, notably Al-Shabaab, which have since been fighting the Somali government and the O-mandated AMISOM peacekeeping force for control of the country. Somalia topped the annual Fragile States Index for 6 years from 2008 up to and including 2013. In October 2011, following preparatory meetings, Kenyan troops entered southern Somalia, Operation Lindanchi, to fight Al-Shabaab, 32, and establish a buffer zone inside Somalia. Kenyan troops were formally integrated into the multinational force in February 2012.